Welcome to the Livin Every Breath podcast. I'm Megan, a 33-year-old stay-at-home mom, lung cancer advocate, and stage 4 thriver. A year ago, my world was flipped upside down when I was diagnosed with lung cancer, something I never imagined would happen at my age as a non-smoker with 2 little kids at home. But here's the thing. Anyone with lungs can have lung cancer. And while my diagnosis changed my life, it just didn't stop it. And that's why I started the Livin Every Breath podcast, a space to share stories of hope, raise awareness for young lung cancer patients, and talk honestly about motherhood, purpose, and what it really means to live. Around here, we find joy in the hard days, the silver linings hidden in the chaos, and celebrate the beauty that still exists when life gets heavy. So take a deep breath, you're not alone, and no matter what life throws at you, keep on living. I would like to introduce to you guys my husband, Matt Flanagan, guy who's been by my side since 2015. When we had our first romantic date at the Cheesecake Factory. Welcome, Matt.
I like to make it very clear the Cheesecake Factory did not have the reputation it does now back then. 10 years ago, it was very convenient for both of us at our places of work, so we thought it was a good idea. Turns out it's now ranked the worst opening date in America. So happy to be here. Obviously, it's been a whirlwind of a year, but obviously have been by Meg's side every step of the way. So kind of looking forward to watching her kind of grow in this podcast and everything else she's planning on doing so that she can really get her story told. So looking forward to it.
Today, I would like to take some time for you guys to get to know my lung cancer journey. And I thought that it was a perfect time to release this first podcast of mine in the month of November, which is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Matt, what did you think about lung cancer before my diagnosis?
It's a good question. I as a non-smoker, I didn't think it was actually possible to have lung cancer. So I actually had two of my grandparents had lung cancer take both of their lives, one of which was long before I was born when my mother was very young. The other which was kind of a second mother to me and my grandmother. She had lung cancer and it kind of got her a lot later in life. So really even someone that smoked their whole life and then stopped for kind of decades leading up to their diagnosis, I didn't even think that was possible. So when Meg was told that she had lung cancer as a non-smoker, I couldn't fathom it. It was something I honestly didn't even think was a scientific possibility.
Yeah, I remember the same thing back in the day when we would be watching the commercials and the people would be speaking weird and they'd be old and definitely had a lot of smoking history. So that's what I thought too. It was an absolute shock when I was diagnosed. And although smoking is still probably one of the leading causes of lung cancer, young patients are becoming more and more diagnoses are happening with young patients, especially people who did not smoke in their past, which unfortunately means that a lot of us aren't diagnosed until we're stage 4 because our symptoms are picked up as, a pulled muscle in my chest or anxiety from having children at home, and then we're not taken as seriously as the older smoking patients who they would automatically assume had lung cancer and give an earlier CT scan. Matt, do you remember the months leading up to my diagnosis?
I do, and I think kind of the overall message that I think Meg's probably expecting and hoping to portray here is just know your body and be an advocate for yourself. I mean, the year leading up to Meg's diagnosis, like her whole life kind of prided herself on being not only active, but really careful about what she was putting into her body, whether it was very limited junk food or really no kind of prescription drugs or really no Tylenol or ibuprofen unless really needed. So we knew something was wrong several months before kind of we got the diagnosis. And it was hard to watch. It was someone who went from being a college athlete playing soccer 4 years at Bridgewater State to it was kind of a daily walk would become a chore. It was difficult watching Megan kind of walk alongside me with the two girls and be out of breath when we were going up a hill. I just knew it was not something that ever impacted Megan being out of breath for kind of short periods of exercise. So really kind of watching that, and it all came to fruition when we were on our 5 month or our 5 year anniversary. Jeez. And just kind of, we would go out throughout the day in Newport, really explore as much as we could, come back to the hotel to get ready for dinner, and then we'd look at each other and just say, should we just have dinner at the hotel bar? And that was not something that, personally, that is exactly my ideal day. Kind of going out throughout the day and then coming home early night. But Megan has never been that way. She's always been someone that's really enjoyed getting dolled up, going out to dinner, and then kind of exploring at night. So just watching that was really, really difficult.
Yeah, I definitely knew something was wrong early on. I had no idea what it was, but I would go run on the treadmill and I couldn't get more than, a tenth of a mile without having to stop and walk. And I just thought maybe I hadn't ran in enough time and I was out of shape for a little bit. And then eventually I was like, I might have diabetes or whatever Google was saying that my symptoms were. But I think it all started back in April of 2024. I ended up having some serious chest pain and I let it go for about 24 hours. And then I was like, this isn't normal. So after 2 different urgent cares and then an ER visit with a chest x-ray and then another checkup with my doctor, they determined almost everyone that it was probably a pulled muscle, and that being a stay-at-home mom and lifting my kids, I might have pulled it, and I was told it might even take 8 weeks to heal itself. So I gave it about 8 weeks, I would say, and then I started to get some anxiety come July, and I never had that before. And now looking back, it was my body's way of saying like something is wrong. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was getting extra tired, which I just thought was being a mom. But I was given anxiety medication, which I took for a hot second and decided that it wasn't for me. And then later on, I started getting out of breath probably in September. I noticed that pushing the girls, like Matt said, up a hill, and I'd have to stop at the top of the hill and take a breath, or I'd go grocery shopping and it would just like wipe me out for the day. I was like, wow, that was exhausting. I need to sit down for the rest of the day. And then early October, I started to get blood tests. The blood tests showed high B12 and eosinophils, which I was told was likely seasonal allergies. And then I pushed for another blood test. When that came up the same results, the doctor did refer me to a blood doctor. But before that happened, and later in October, I ended up with arm pain. And it lasted the whole day. And then when I was going to bed, I could see all the veins in my arms. And I just knew it was worse than what I thought. It was at the beginning of the day. So we ended up going to the ER. And after probably 5 hours in the ER, maybe even more, the poor nurse had to come tell us the news because the doctors were like rotating and no one was around. And she felt like I had to know that I had something in my lung, which obviously they didn't realize at the time what it was, and that in the CT scan, my chest lymph nodes, my stomach lymph nodes, and up my spine lit up. We ended up doing a mediastinoscopy, which was when they cut into your neck. So I have a nice little scar right here. And they take out a chest lymph node, and then we found out that it was in fact lung cancer. So I had lung cancer, a tumor in my lung, lymph nodes in my chest and stomach, up my spine. And we later found out, probably almost a month later, that it was ALK. So I have a genetic mutation, which I'm actually pretty excited about, because to have stage 4 lung cancer, if you don't have a genetic mutation, you kind of just go right to chemo and hope for the best. They have targeted medicine now, or targeted therapy, so essentially like a chemo pill that I take every day, that luckily has been working really well. So at the moment, I'm Ned, and we hope to keep that for as long as possible. And they already have a next generation of my medication. So I've never partied so hard that we had a genetic mutation. But yes, so that's my overall story. Um, what do you remember most from the experience of my diagnosis?
There's been a lot of memories. Surprisingly, more good than bad, because Megan seems to find the good in everything. I think I'll tell a couple of stories, and hopefully I'm not talking too much. But the first story being that night in the ER. When the nurse first came in to us to tell us that there was something on Megan's lung, obviously that just took us by a complete surprise. We were at that point kind of numb for a few minutes, just really didn't know what to do. I think it was just such a shock to the nurses and the doctors in the ER too. They then kind of re-looked at the scans, came back and said they don't think it's associated with the lung, which was awesome news at the time. They thought it could either be an infection or sarcoidosis, which is another kind of infection throughout your body, or it could be some sort of cancer, or even a benign tumor. So it kind of went through a couple different stages, and then they ended up coming back and saying it is in fact something in the lung that they can't rule out. So no knock on the kind of our treatment at all. It was just I think everyone was so shocked by what was going on in Megan's body that one day that they really wanted to run everything into the ground to make sure that kind of they knew what was going on, which at the end of the day we didn't until the mediastinoscopy, which is my second story. I think that day we went in, and Megan can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time we weren't told, but we kind of read through the lines that cancer was a real possibility. But at that point, it seemed like lymphoma was kind of the number one culprit that we were expecting. So we did a ton of research leading up to that mediastinoscopy in November of last year. Really kind of looked at what next step treatments would look like and whatnot. And not to kind of downplay lymphoma at all, we had just done a ton of research. So when we
It looks
ultimately
better than lung cancer.
exactly, and when we ultimately found out what it was, we just had no idea what the prognosis was or kind of what the next steps were. So we had prepared ourselves for a worst case situation, and that in that mediastinoscopy. So Megan and I showed up to South Shore Hospital, and we essentially went through the kind of process. Megan got taken back. 2 hours later, I got a phone call from the surgeon, and I will save my gripes for a different day. But I was sitting in the waiting room surrounded by 50 to 100 people who were also waiting for their procedures or waiting for loved ones, similar to what I was doing. And the surgeon told me we have good and bad news. The good news is the procedure went exactly as planned. They were able to go through Megan's throat, get a lymph node from her chest, no problem, sewed her back up, and she was resting. She was resting fine. The bad news was it was in fact cancer. So in my opinion, the good and bad news kind of didn't really weigh the same, in my opinion. But I was then surrounded by all these people being told on a phone call that my wife has cancer. He said it actually is not lymphoma, it is carcinoma of some kind that they don't know what at the time. So it was just a out of body experience, which a lot of those are typically positive. This is one where it was a very negative out of body experience, and I did not know how to react. So I immediately just went into what type of cancer could it be. He didn't, of course, couldn't tell from the one lymph node that had to go through testing. And then I asked, what are next steps? When Megan wakes up, do we kind of regroup in a room and then we tell Megan and go from there? And I was told that on the way home, Megan will be groggy, but I can tell her the news in the car on the way home. That was not something I ever expected to have to do. It was one of the more scary things I've ever dealt with in my life. So we got in the car, left the hospital. I told Megan, I could tell she wasn't 100%. I could tell something, like it was, she knew what I was telling her, but it wasn't really penetrating and she wasn't getting the full grasp. So we got home, I walked her up to bed, put her down to bed, had a call with my cousin who's also an oncologist. And then the next morning I woke up and Megan's first thing she said was, "Why are my parents coming home from their trip to Florida early?" And my heart stopped. I said, "Megan, do you remember what we spoke about last night on the way home?" And she said, "Yeah, I have cancer, but they're in Florida on their timeshare. Why are they coming home early? We can't do anything right now." And that was when I was just like, this is the perfect person for this type of battle. I mean, she's approached it with that mindset from day one. Just, why does this have to impact tomorrow if we can't do anything until we get other results? So could not be more proud of her. I know that was a long-winded story, but that was one of the scariest days of my life, and it was kind of capped off with such a positive note from Megan.
Thank you. Now I've created a little joy jar, which kind of goes along with what you just said, and very positive. It is something that I was looking to do with our daughters, but so maybe we can hold off on the joy jar. Do you want to do the spin it game?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the spin it game is when you have something happen to you that goes wrong and you have to spin it to be a positive experience. Let's see. Let's pick one. Your favorite jeans rip before you go out with your friends.
If I know my wife, the answer is going to be they turn into her favorite jean shorts.
Yep.
Or she gets to buy another pair of jeans.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes. Now I have to go shopping. So yeah, I think that's great. We might wait for our kids to come home to finish this one off. What do you think?
Perfect.
And we're back with our kiddos. This is Harper. Can you say hi?
Hi.
And this is Grace.
Hi.
How old are you guys?
4, 2.
Yes, 4 and 2. And they were 3 and 1 when I was diagnosed. What do you think about Mama's cancer?
So she.
Do we fight? Are we fighting cancer?
Yes, we fight cancer.
Yeah.
And it's so when they get. It's always like on Mama's team. They can go on Mama's team.
Yeah, everyone can be on my team, right? Team Megan, right? Yeah, all right. We are going to play a little game called a joy jar. Are you guys ready? We're going to pull something from our little jar here, and it will give us something to talk about that makes us very happy. Are you guys ready? Okay, well, maybe we'll do 2 so we don't have any fights. And you can each pull one. And Grace is older, so she's going to pull one first, okay? You can pull one second. Go ahead first. Just one.
I'm going to read it to you. When do you feel most at peace? So what's your favorite time of the day?
Going to the dollar store and helping Mama's fight cancer.
You like to go to the dollar store and help Mama fight cancer? Going to the dollar store is one of our favorite times.
Is that because you like to buy gifts for Mama?
I'm going to the dollar store.
You want to go to the dollar store? We can do that. When I feel most at peace is when I wake up on a Sunday and we have nothing else to do in the day and we just hang in bed for about like an hour before we even start cooking breakfast, just the 4 of us. That's my favorite time. How about you, Dad?
Unfortunately, I think Mama just stole mine. I think Sundays are my favorite day of the week because we typically have the least amount of sports and we get to just hang out as a family, right?
All right, your turn. Pick one, just one. You want a purple one too? Just
Got
pick
2.
one. Let's see. Which one? That one? Which one? This one? Let's see. Oh, I need to read it. It's right here. Look. Right
Can
there.
Mama read it to you?
No. Okay, well then we'll be all done. Okay, can you say thank you everyone for coming? Can you say it, G?
So thank you everyone for coming.
Look at.
Oh, now you're shy.
All right, well, Well, thank you so much for coming, Matt. Thank you for joining me, my first podcast. This was awesome.
Okay.
Of course.
And we'll be back soon.
Look forward to it.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
So thanks for spending a little time with me today here on the Livin Every Breath podcast. I hope you heard something that reminded you to take a deep breath, look for the silver lining, and find a little joy, even in the tough moments. Together, we're changing the face of lung cancer, spreading awareness, and proving that there's life, laughter, and purpose beyond your diagnosis. If this episode inspired you at all, please share it with anyone that it might spark a hope in there today. Because the more we share our message, the louder it becomes. Until next time, keep showing up, keep smiling, and keep living. One breath, one day, one story at a time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.